Welcome in, everyone, to another live edition of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin, riding solo for this one. Just could not wait to get back out here and talk about the week one wrap up, or I guess we still have one more game left tonight. But just wanted to jump out here and talk about my reactions and thoughts from week one around the NFL, but particularly the AFC and the AFC North, especially after the Ravens and Chiefs kicking off the season on Thursday and being the only game. It certainly had a lot of attention, a lot of reactions, and certainly the Ravens losing in week one was not what Ravens fans were hoping for. But after the remaining week one games were played, I think we gained a little bit of perspective, and it's not, the world isn't falling, that's for sure. What's going on, Laney? Where you been at, buddy? Zeppia, what's going on? Appreciate you coming out and joining me. I know this is a little out of the norm here, doing a day or afternoon show. Typically, we record or go live in the evenings, but I was off today and been working a ton lately, so I just wanted to get out here as quickly as I could to talk about all that I saw over the weekend, and of course, some further reaction from the Ravens game now that we've had an opportunity to see some tape and hear interviews from players, so we can kind of get inside the mind of some of these guys and what they were up to. What's going on, Yeecaw? What's going on? Appreciate you coming out here, joining me as I am alone for this episode. But I just wanted to get into quickly some of the scores, and then obviously I'll be jumping into some extended Ravens thoughts and all that good stuff. But I did want to get into some of the scores that we saw just yesterday and talk about it, because I think it does give a little bit of, kind of you can take a deep breath as a Ravens fan, okay? Because, look, I think some of the fears that people were having across the league, they certainly should have went away after what we saw yesterday. So the standings after this first weekend, at least in the AFC North, Steelers, the only team to win. They end up beating the Falcons, as you see on the screen here, 18-10. The only AFC North team to win. And it's kind of interesting because the AFC North's definitely been the best division the last couple years. Last year, it wasn't even close. I mean, 4 of the best teams in the NFL were all here in the AFC North, and it was a massive drop-off when you tried to find the next best division in the league. And I'd argue that, last year, the AFC North was the best division in any sport. I mean, they were just top to bottom so good with with the Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Browns. I mean, they were all talented teams. But this year might be a little bit different. And look, the Steelers go out in the offseason. They get 2 quarterbacks. They get the veteran in Russell Wilson. Then they get the young guy, the guy I think you're hoping that would have some more upside in Justin Fields, who had a bit of he didn't have the greatest landing spot when he was drafted going with the Bears, and didn't have a ton of talent around him, didn't have a great offensive line. So questions were, was it Fields or was it his surrounding cast? So he gets the start. They win 18-10 over a Falcons team that a lot of people said, hey, this is going to be a big turnaround. This is one of the teams that's going to have the biggest turnaround. They pick up Kirk Cousins. They still have Bijan, was woefully underused last year, and they have a pretty damn good receiving core as far as, group pass catching group, with Kyle Pitts leading the way. Drake London is a young, good player. They pick up Darnell Mooney, and high hopes for this team. Get rid of Arthur Smith, who I think a lot of fans were ready to see a change at head coach. But so yeah, the Steelers get the win. But would I call it an impressive win? Absolutely not. Justin Fields, 17-23, 156 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. He's sacked a couple times. But to say he was impressive, that would not be the case. So, yes, they get the win. They're the leaders of the AFC North, but they did not instill fear in the heart of this Ravens fan, at least. I certainly was not looking at this team going, oh, my goodness, man, they got to deal with these guys. So they're the leaders. Got to give them credit. They're the only team in the North to win, but certainly not doesn't look like a team that is going to be blowing away their AFC North competitors. So that's good from that. But this is the game I'm really most excited to talk about. Before, again, I'm going to be getting into a lot of Ravens thoughts. I was able to watch a lot of film, the All-22. took a bunch of notes, and man, there's a lot to talk about. But I tell you what I was surprised by is by the amount of good I saw from the tape. It's like, man, after the loss, you're like, you feel so down, but there's a lot to like in the tape, and I think a lot for Ravens fans to be optimistic about. But let's look at this game, because this was maybe the shocker. I know there's a lot of survivor pools out there, survivor leagues, and a lot of players were immediately eliminated from their survivor pool by picking the Bengals in week 1. And I think that was a very popular pick. If you're not familiar with the way survivor leagues work, you pick one team every week. They have to win. There's no spread involved, just have to win. But you then cannot pick that team for the rest of the season. So every team you pick, you have to be very careful when you pick them, because they could absolutely end up. Oh, that's nice. That's good to see. Okay, let me fix that. Let me work on that. But so a lot of people pick the Bengals thinking that's a slam dunk. That's an easy win, right? Not so fast, right? They end up losing to a just bad Patriots team. Like you cannot lose to the Patriots team when they have all the turnover that they've had heading into this season, right? They move on from the greatest head coach in history, right? At least that's how he's been touted, thanks to Tom Brady and all that he's done for him. But they start over with a new head coach in Jared Mayo. They have the tumultuous offseason experience with Matthew Judon, and kind of ends on a sour note when they trade him away. Ultimately, he ends up with the Falcons. But let me see if I can throw this back up here. Sorry about the issues there. But they lose 16-10 to a Patriots team that's led by Jacoby Brissett, a career backup, a guy who's certainly not going to blow anybody away with his talent. They letting Drake May sit and kind of work on becoming a pro. And so they start Jacoby Brissett. He gets them the win. Ramondre Stevenson goes absolutely insane. 25 carries, 120 yards, and a touchdown. But most concerning is the performance of Joe Burrow. 21 of 29 behind a revamped offensive line. An offensive line they spent a plenty on in the offseason, both in free agency as well as draft capital. Joe Burrow has no touchdowns, no picks. He's sacked 3 times. Behind that, again, revamped offensive line. They signed Zach Moss to replace Joe Mixon, who goes over to the Texans. He has, I guess, a solid game, but just underutilized. 9 carries, 44 yards, and a touchdown. Chase Brown, his backup, guy that some people thought would split carries, just 3 carries, 11 yards. Jamar Chase had the offseason where he doesn't show up till the final practice before the season starts, ends up with 6 catches for just 62 yards. Really just, abysmal, like pathetic to get handled by a Patriots team whose leading receiver is Austin Hooper for 2 catches for 31 yards. Get absolutely ran all over. If you're a Bengals fan, the sky is falling. I'm sorry. Like, it's one thing to lose to the Chiefs by inches when you play the worst game you'll probably play all year. You have 5 penalties called against you where they're questionable at best for alignment issues, where the rest of the league combined for 5 of those same penalties, averaging half a penalty a game overall in the league, where the Ravens had 5 against them. All that stacked against you when you have a revamped offensive line, a bunch of new starters in their first game in maybe the loudest stadium on the road against the defending champs, and you lose by inches. To lose like the Bengals did to a New England team that is picked universally to finish last in their division, and one of the worst teams in the AFC. I think I saw they were picked to be either the second or the worst team in the entire AFC. And you lose at home to that team? Like, wow. Like, wow. That cannot happen. It cannot happen. So, man, I wouldn't want to be a Bengals fan right now. That's for damn sure. But let's get into the last game, because this stuff, it's just absolutely hilarious. Like, the Browns losing to the Cowboys isn't as egregious, of course, as the Patriots beating the Bengals, but the Browns were still at home. They go 0-1. They lose 33-17 to, again, a Cowboys team that, as a good team, but certainly lost some key pieces last year. And there was questions about, what this team was going to look like this year. Dak Prescott does not have a very good performance, but he didn't need to. 19 of 32, just shy of 180 yards for a touchdown, no picks, is sacked 3 times. But the story of the day is really Deshaun Watson. Again, the highest paid according to guaranteed and hit in NFL history still to this day. And he turns in an abysmal performance, 24 out of 45. I mean, holy smokes. What's the completion percentage on that? 50. Where's the completion percentage? What does it not show that? Anyway, so it's over 50%, but not good. Just horrible. 169 yards. Overall, they only accomplished 137 net passing yards because he was sacked 6 times for negative 32 yards. He had a 51.1 rating. I mean, they go out. Here's what the Browns do. They go out, they get Jerry Jeudy. They still have Amari Cooper, who's a hell of a player and creates more separation than most receivers in the league. Super underrated as a route runner. Was absolutely phenomenal when Joe Flacco took over last year, as well as David Njoku, who was arguably, one of the best tight ends, certainly from a production standpoint when Joe Flacco took over. He has just 4 catches for 44 yards. Jerry Jeudy, the great acquisition in the offseason, 3 catches for 25 yards, does have the touchdown, which certainly adds to his day. But Amari Cooper, 2 catches, 16 yards. I mean, what the hell? And it's a good defense. These Cowboys are a good defense, but come on. You just cannot perform this poorly if you're Deshaun Watson, you're paid that handsomely. It's really bad. And to really further that point, they get rid of Baker Mayfield. They run him out of town after he's the first round pick. They spend an ungodly amount of money. Just 60, I believe maybe it was even 70. It was either 60 or 70 more guaranteed, 60 or 70 million more in guarantees than any player has ever made in history. Deshaun Watson is what Deshaun Watson got to convince him to come there because he wasn't going to go there. But they said, we want you, we're going to pay you this much more than anyone has ever made in history to convince you to come here, to get rid of Baker Mayfield because we don't want that guy. We don't want him. We want you, and we're going to show you that by paying you more than anyone, way more than anyone. Since that time, ladies and gentlemen, since they did that, let me just read you some of these numbers. I wrote them down. I'm an old school guy, pen and paper. I don't have them to display. I do apologize for that. But since that time, Baker Mayfield has 6,496 passing yards. Deshaun Watson, 2,386. Over 4,000 more for Baker Mayfield. Since that time also, Baker Mayfield, 44 total touchdowns. Deshaun Watson, 17. I mean, well more than 10 more than double what Deshaun Watson has accomplished. Also in that time, Baker Mayfield, 18 interceptions to Deshaun's 11. So in that regard, I guess, you got to give the nod to Deshaun, to be fair. Also in that time, a 90.9 quarterback rating for Baker Mayfield, 78.1 for Deshaun Watson. Completion percentage, 63.3 for Baker, 59.1 for Deshaun. And a 1-1 playoff record for Baker, 0-0 for Deshaun Watson. So it just shows you that, if you make that kind of mistake at quarterback, what that's going to do. Like, Deshaun restructures his deal, creates $35 million additional cap space this season. However, then creates $74 million cap hit in the next 2 years for the Browns that they cannot get away from. It's unavoidable. They can't just cut this guy. They can't. And yeah, they could keep restructuring his salary into a bonus, which will be allowed to spread the cap hit again over the remaining years. But it doesn't just disappear. It has to go somewhere. So it just typically tacks on to the end, and they will pay for that. So, man, it's like, at least from the AFC North, it makes you think, well, okay, so yeah, the Ravens started 0-1. You never want to lose your opening week, but holy smokes, it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a whole lot worse when you look around the league and the performances from the AFC North. It didn't scare anybody. I'll put it to you like this as a Ravens fan. Johnny Hewitt, what's going on? Yeah, Dak just got paid. Yes, he did. What's going on, Cedric? Appreciate you coming out. Nuno, what's up, buddy? Appreciate it. Nuno, I keep doing that. Nuno, what's going on, buddy? Appreciate you coming out. Always angry. Good afternoon. Warzone player, huh? I might have to get on that in a little bit, depending on If I can get my workout in here. It looks pretty nice out. So it's tempting when you see outside to play a game inside feels wrong. Feels wrong, but maybe I'll jump on there at some point. But yeah, I just want to spend a few minutes to just give a little bit of perspective around the league to kind of let you know the sky is not falling. It's not, the end of the world. And I still think, the Ravens are in just as good a position to win the North as anyone and to ultimately at this point represent the AFC as anyone. Again, they lost to a Chiefs team who's the defending champ on the road by an inch with all that was stacked against them, so just wanted to provide that little bit of perspective. Also wanted to point out some Ravens thoughts. So I guess we'll get into that now. I know, Mitty. I know it. I love to see it. I mean, it put a smile on my face to watch the Bengals absolutely bungle it up like they always do. And I love the audacity of some of these Bengals fans. Like, you should see them in the offseason. How about them big Joey Burrow's got his renewed swag with his Marshall Mathers look. Like, stop it. Stop it. This is a guy who's had the best receiving core in the league since he's entered. And we make excuse after excuse as to why this guy underperforms in moments, certainly against the Ravens. And when Lamar Jackson's there, we know how that goes. But yeah, I mean, I think that wrist injury is going to forever change his career. And I would not be shocked if he never reaches the goals he's already reached, thus far in his career, being, Super Bowl appearance. What's going on, Sip the Tally? What's up, buddy? Yeah, Marshall. That's right. Appreciate you jumping in the chat. We'll certainly have to link up in the very near future, get you out here to get your take on certainly what we saw from the offensive line, which I'm going to get into here in a second. I'm trying to pull up. Let me see if I can make this happen again. I'm trying to pull up some of the stats so I can bring you guys kind of behind the curtain and what I'm seeing here. Let me just pull this up. So it's very interesting when you have the week one of the NFL slate behind you, and you can kind of compare some of what I was talking about. Look, we had a lot of Chiefs fans jump in our post-game instant reaction video and talk about, oh, here they are blaming the refs again, right? Typical sour grapes from a losing fan base after a loss where they go, no, yeah, they blame the refs, excuses, win on the field, da-da-da-da. You should have seen them. These idiots came out. And look, I get it. It's your team, so you have natural biases built into it. I have the same. But when you look at this from an objective standpoint, the penalties, every penalty I could have pointed out, I did point out actually in the post-game show, they were all questionable. And look, I get it. I have biases, but I think I'm pretty fair in that I'll blame the player when it's obviously his fault. And I'll blame the refs when I think it's obviously their fault. But the question is, what the hell was going on with those illegal formations? How is it that the Ravens were called for 5 when every other team in the NFL, all 31 other teams combined for just 15? Meaning the Ravens averaged 5 so far in their games, and the combined total from the NFL averaged 0.5 a game. And there was countless screenshots. I wish I had them prepared right now, but I do not. Countless pictures and screenshots taken of players far more egregiously behind the center, if you want to use him as your benchmark, far more behind him than what we saw from Ronnie Stanley, Patrick McCary, what we saw from even, I think it was Rashad Bateman was called for it. Actually, you know what? Rashad's was legit. He was off the line. I'll give him that. The Rashad one was legit. But the other ones, I saw far more tackles around the league that were further behind. So that was just an odd thing. I'm assuming it was some sort of point of emphasis, and they were really trying to make a point. Even Andy Reid after the game joked about, he's like, damn, I'm glad they were on offense first so they could make their point before we hit the field. But it's just a head-scratching, really overall refereeing of that game. When you talk about the Linderbaum hold that took plenty of yards off the board, questionable at best. The horse collar from Roquan Smith, where he grabbed initially at the jersey, by the way, not at the pads, but grabbed at the jersey, but then ultimately just jumped on the guy's back and the guy fell face down. I've never seen a horse collar where a guy falls on his belly. I just don't understand that. He wasn't dragged down. It was no, pulled down from behind where he's folded on the back of his legs. None of that. So it was just a lot of head scratching moments, calls in that game that I just don't understand. And that's just kind of a representation of some of that. Let's see here. Wild Herb Ways. Appreciate you coming out. Appreciate Rave Kingdom. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm going to get into that now, Rave. I'm going to get into that right now because, man, what we saw from this experimental, I'll call it experimental offensive line starting lineup with Faalele getting, no one has gotten more of an opportunity than what we've seen from Daniel Faalele in this offseason. He has been gifted the job at right guard, like absolutely gifted. He's had so many opportunities to get the job done. And I know it's just week one, but this isn't a rookie we're talking about here. Like he doesn't get the runway that Rosengarten gets. He doesn't. He's been in the league too long, and while he might be new as the right guard, he's had starts in this league, albeit a tackle, but he's had starts in this league, so he doesn't get as much leniency as a rookie would. And he was bad. He was bad. Too many times he was bad in both run and pass. And so in the preseason, we go, well, oddly enough, a guy 6'8", 400 pounds, can't move guys in the run game. Just can't do it. It's strange as it is, a guy that size just can't knock guys off the ball. But he was at least, he was reasonably good in pass protection. And you think, well, okay, if the guy's not going to be good at something, but he's going to be strong at the other half of his game, well, I could see why someone would say, I'd rather him be good at pass pro and we can work and develop his run blocking because at least he's not getting your franchise quarterback's head taken off. Well, that wasn't even the case in week one. And albeit against Chris Jones, who's an absolute monster, and he was definitely hunting guys on that offensive line. He was scooting guys down. Now, I want this guy. He's scooting guys out of his way to make sure he gets the matchup of his choice. And, he was an equal opportunity bully in a sense. So he was beating up on all the guys, taking turns. But you cannot get beaten that bad. You cannot allow the play to get completely blown up on basically your back. Like it was you were the reason the play got completely blown up and wasn't able to succeed. You can't let that happen. And what it did was it had an absolute cascading effect to play calling, to how Lamar was reacting, his lack of trust in the offensive line, his inability to go through reads. He ended up becoming, at points in that game, a one-read quarterback where he's reading once, and if it's not there, he takes off because he had zero confidence in his offensive line protecting, particularly, his right guard, his right tackle, and certainly at some points his left guard. It also caused a ripple effect to our coaching staff, and it caused, they couldn't call certain plays. They couldn't call certain formations. They had to shift the offensive line to help the right side, which exposed Voorhees in some ways to get exposed in his pass protection. And he kind of overset to the right in certain ways or in certain times and allowed guys to get to his left because he was, they're shifting the offensive line to the right to try and help these guys. And now he's overexposed and he's oversetting to the right and allowing guys getting to his left. So, and then the coaching decisions in some of these, like, I got to imagine it's the coaching decision to allow Justice Hill to single block Chris Jones on the final two plays of the game, where he did it admirable. Like, you got to give Justice Hill credit to block a guy as talented outweighs him by pretty much double his weight to still hold him off and kind of hang in there. It's a lot. So again, if you didn't see the last two plays of the game, they're asking Justice Hill to block Chris Jones. Like, it just cannot happen. So they have got to clean up the offensive line, and I think they got to help the offensive line in play calling. Like, I need to see more read options from this offense. I saw too few, and when they did call them, they worked. Of course they worked, right? Like, it's causing so much indecision by the defense when you have to choose between selling out to the handoff to Derrick Henry but also pausing to the potential of Lamar pulling it and running around the outside. We saw multiple scenarios where it just worked incredibly. And in fact, there was even a couple plays where Lamar, I think, read it incorrectly, could have handed it off, chose to keep it, and it still worked because we're just that dynamic at those two positions. And another thing, like, they have got to use more play action. Too many just straight dropbacks, not play action, not giving the threat, the deception of the run. And it just, when we did see play action, it just opened up the middle of the field incredibly. Of course it did, right? Like, because the linebackers had to cheat up, and it just opened up that spot behind them in front of the safety, behind the linebacker, for guys like Zay Flowers, for Mark Andrews. I mean, it was pitch and catch, but we just didn't see it enough. And again, this isn't a game where it was out of reach, where they're getting blown out, where game script forces them to have a pass-happy or a pass-heavy offense. No, the game was so very much in reach. It's really frustrating when you see just not helping out your offensive line, the play calling, not helping out your quarterback when it was so effective when you did use it. It's just, they got to be better as a coaching staff to help this young, revamped offensive line, and also to help Lamar Jackson gain confidence in those guys, because he just didn't have it, and straight dropbacks, to me, aren't taking advantage of your personnel. And so they got to absolutely be better. It only helps everyone. I just don't understand the lack of play action used in this offense when you have the run threats that we have in the backfield. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But also, when Lamar Jackson does have the opportunity to set his feet, and he does have the opportunity to find one-on-one matchups on the outside, like we saw with Isaiah Likely at times, Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, got to give him a chance to catch the ball. In the second half of the game, Lamar Jackson's footwork, his mechanics, they broke down. And part of that is due to lack of trust in the offensive line. And again, play callers help with that by the way they design the game plan and certainly call the plays. But there was multiple opportunities. Lamar had one-on-one coverage where you got to give your pass catcher an opportunity to make a play on the ball. We saw a massive overthrow to Isaiah Likely. We saw an underthrow to Zay Flowers on the right side when he had single coverage, had a step on the defender. We saw Rashad Bateman, again, same thing. One-on-one coverage, had an opportunity. Now, it wasn't the greatest route from Rashad Bateman on it was like a post, I believe it was, or at least what it's kind of looked like. It was a post route. He could have kind of cut it more shallow and decided to make it more of a skinny, more vertical. And the throw just goes into the first row. I mean, it just goes out of the back of the end zone. No chance. He throws a little bit shorter, maybe a little bit more across the field instead of, vertical and over the pass catcher's head. He's got an opportunity. He had no chance to make a play on the ball. And the same could be said for Isaiah Likely on the third to last play of the game, where Isaiah's sprinting to the corner pylon of the end zone, and it's just an overthrow. Take a look. Take some air out of it and throw it a little shorter, put a little bit more on it. And I think it's an easy pass and catch. So again, mechanics in the first half looked a lot different from the mechanics in the second half. He's got to tighten that up, man. Lamar's got to tighten that up, and he's got to become more consistent. Even when I know he's tired, I know that, lack of trust in your offensive line, but too many times we saw a narrow base in the second half, and the throws were off. Or even when they were completed, pass catchers forced to fall to the ground upon catching the ball rather than being able to turn and get some more yards after catch. He's got to be better. He just has to be. But the biggest thing we need to see overall, the biggest thing I think would help instantly on this offense is you got to put Ben Cleveland in there at right guard. Falele, you've had all the opportunities in the world. Like, Daniel Falele's gotten every single opportunity in the offseason, in preseason, and now in week one to show whether or not he can handle the responsibilities of being a full-time right guard. And to me, he's just not shown it. And if you think, there's no one in the world that could tell me that they know for sure that Ben Cleveland would be worse. And I think there's a ton of people out there who are saying that they know for sure Ben Cleveland would be better. Like, he wouldn't be worse as a pass blocker. We know that for sure, because if you look at his grades from last year, if you look at his performances, every time we've seen him as a starter, he's been better as a pass blocker than what we saw from Falele. Guaranteed. And I have a hard time believing that he can't be better as a run blocker, because what the hell did Falele show you as a run blocker that made you excited? So it's like, I don't know what Ben Cleveland's done to piss off this coaching staff, or what Falele's done to instill such confidence and so much grace from the coaching staff for him, but I'm sorry, it's got to change. I need to see Ben Cleveland as the full-time right guard until he performs worse than what we've seen from Falele. I mean, if you would have given Ben Cleveland the amount of time you've given Falele to win this right guard job, I mean, Falele's had every goddamn snap that you can imagine at right guard. Like, if Cleveland was given all those opportunities, you can't tell me he wouldn't be in a better place than where Falele is right now. There's no way. There's just no way you can convince me of that. So yeah, Mitty says give him some fresh squirrel. Yeah, fry up a squirrel before the game. You know, like and Chris White, you say it. I mean, he's solid. That's it. He just needs more playing time. I get that the reports are that he's frustrating in practice. We don't see the effort. But what's more important, practice or games? Like, somebody get on Ben Cleveland's ass and get him to perform better in practice so he can impress these coaches, or at least not disappoint the coaches enough to where they won't start him. But ultimately, the game is what matters. Like, we heard the same criticisms from a guy who ended up, once the change was made, really making the difference in a lot of ways in our last Super Bowl run, and Bryant McKinney. You know, the issue with the coaching staff was that he's lazy in practice. You know, he doesn't do the things in the weight room and the outside of the game that the coaches want to see. And so they didn't want to start him. Well, when he finally gets in the game, it makes a huge difference for us. So it's like, I get practice habits are important, and you don't want to reward a guy who you deem as maybe lazy as a practice guy. But ultimately, the game is what matters. And if the guy's a gamer and he plays better in the game, I want that guy starting. Like, I just don't understand. Black Ice, you're right. Like, too much was on Lamar's shoulders as a rusher. We cannot have Lamar Jackson being our leading rusher again. Like, the whole reason we got this guy, we got Derrick Henry, is because we said, all right, we got a guy. Now it's not all on Lamar Jackson to be our leading runner. And gosh darn it, he was again our leading rusher by by a lot when it comes to a yardage standpoint. Maybe not a lot when it comes to carries, but regardless, I don't give a damn. He should not have 16 carries in a game when we have Derrick Henry as our starting running back. 16 carries when your starting running back has 13? Come on, it's Derrick freaking Henry. Like, and again, I don't want to hear the game. Like, they were never down by more than 10 points. And in fact, there was only brief moments they were down by 10 points. More often, they were within one score. So, yeah, like, run the freaking ball. Become a run-first team. Like, play action off of it. It should be getting efficiency should be out of this world from our passing game. It should be out of this world. We should have less pass attempts, but far more chunk plays and successful pass attempts when we choose to do so. Because you should be leaning on the run game and play action passing off of it. It's real. I just don't understand the outsmarting, the overthinking. It's just crazy. Like, you're helping everyone on defense when you decide to pass the ball far more often than you run the ball. And even the numbers are deceiving. I'm going to throw up the box score again, because the numbers are deceiving when it comes to even the final box score. When you say, oh, well, you know, they ran the ball 32 times, they passed the ball 41. It's far more egregious than that, guys, because how many of those 16 carries by Lamar Jackson were actually designed throws that he turned into runs? I mean, I think it's fair to at least say 5 or 6, right? I think it's more than that. But at the very least, it's 6. So really, that total should be 47 pass attempts to 26 runs. Like, it's a massive gap. And it's like the same goddamn thing we saw in the championship game, what makes you just crazy. But I think it's even worse because in the championship game, there was a ton of heavy box looks from the defense where it wasn't to that degree in this game. So it's just like, God dang, why don't we run the ball more? And then when we do throw play action instead of these standard straight dropbacks, it's, yes, sip to tally, thank you. Stretch runs and play action off that stretch. I don't understand it. And then someone, Baltimore football, does Lamar want to be in the gun? Are you sure? That's Lamar's call? But that's fine. And even if he is in the gun, okay, that's fine. You can play action out of the gun. Like, we saw it. We saw it on, actually, in fact, we saw a fake toss to the right. So we had Derrick Henry lined up directly to the right in the shotgun. Lamar's in the shotgun, and Derrick Henry's to his right. We saw a fake toss to the right where he takes a step to the right. He fakes a toss to Derrick Henry, resets his feet, and hits a wide open crossing Mark Andrews, who's coming from the right to left, wide open for a first down. So that's fine. If he wants to be in the gun, that's fine. You can still play action out of the gun. Like, we saw it in the game for immense success. And even if your quarterback wants to be in the gun, okay, he's got to spend some time under center too. You're going to have to do both. Like, I think he'd be happy with the success that he'll have out of being under center. And we saw a lot of that too. We did see him under center. So, like, it's frustrating, man. It's just, I don't understand. And, everything we hear from Todd Monken, you got to be able to run the ball. If you can't run the ball, you can't control the clock, which means you cannot control the game. Okay. Quit saying it and do it. Like, far too many straight dropbacks for me. I just don't understand it. Help out your offensive line, help out your pass catchers, and most importantly, help out your freaking quarterback. Just got to do it. You got to do it. It's so silly. It's absolutely silly. I don't understand it. Like, you're just setting yourself up for frustration, for failure. Also, want to talk Isaiah Likely. He's a problem. And I think Mark Andrews is still dealing with some injury issues, whether it's stemming from something that happened in practice or still from the car accident he had. Now, he had opportunities, certainly towards the end of the game. He had an opportunity over the middle of the field that Lamar was pressured and ultimately wasn't able to give him an opportunity to make a catch. But Isaiah Likely is problems. Like, he is immense problems. His ability, especially once you see the all 22 footage to run routes this year, his ability to use his big body to be physical at the top of his route and create separation, impressive. I mean, his ability to block in space where he's not just shielding, he's not just getting in the way, he's impactful when he gets there in space. Impressive. Like, his ability to run after the catch. We saw on that scramble play on the right side where he makes the catch and then tight ropes up the sideline and then puts the brakes and allows a guy to just go falling right out of bounds in front of him, takes it in for the end zone. Wow, this guy is an animal. He is impressive, man. Isaiah Likely, man, he's going to be a problem this year. Absolute problem. Yeah, impressive player. But one thing I want to talk to, let me see here. I don't know. There's some interesting stuff in the Wow, people insulting. Oh, that's not very nice in the chat. That's not very nice. But let me show you this part that really kind of pissed me off when I looked at the snap. And I knew it was coming. When I looked at the snap counts, I knew it was coming. But we have got to be less predictable than we were when it comes to a personnel standpoint. And also, this pissed me off too, just from a snap count. I get that Derrick Henry isn't the pass catching threat. And we saw it when he was in Tennessee, him being removed from the field on third down for Tyjae Spears, who was their primary pass catcher last year. And we knew it was going to happen this year where Justice Hill was going to have a lot of third down opportunities to be a pass catcher. Again, we talked about his pass blocking, which by the way, Derrick Henry had some pretty nice pass blocks as well as his ability to pick up a cornerback blitz was phenomenal where he kind of changed. Looked like he was about to run out, sees the cornerback blitz and stonewalls him in the flat. When we saw Justice Hill taking on damn Chris Jones in back-to-back plays in the final moments of that game, that was impressive as well. But I don't know if you Ravens fans signed up for this. I don't know how many Ravens fans are going to go, yeah, I want to see a game where Justice Hill out-snaps Derrick Henry. Sure. Six more snaps than Derrick Henry. I don't think many Ravens fans wanted to see that, right? Like, that's pretty surprising. And to not, which didn't help, what didn't help this is the fact that on top of him playing 47 snaps, right? Was it 47? Let me see here. I switched to a different screen. Yeah, 43 offensive snaps. He had one carry, guys. So 43 snaps on offense, and he had one carry. One. So what does that tell the defensive coordinator and all the defensive players on the field when they see Justice Hill run on the field? They're passing the ball, right? Like, what the hell kind of predictability is that? And now I don't want to see a ton of carries for Justice Hill. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want to see 43 snaps and have him, 15 carries. But what I do want to see is if you're going to have him on the field, you got to run him occasionally so the defense can't go, all right, they're passing because Justice Hill just trotted onto the field. Like, come on. You cannot be that damn predictable. Like, that's some high school level predictability. It's insane. You can't do it. You just absolutely, that's high school level predictability, guys. Like, that's pathetic. You don't think that the defensive coordinator noticed that? You don't think that the leaders on that defense were pointing that shit out and noticing it? Like, that's pathetic. Like, you got to be better than that. And look, that also means on time, throw the ball to Derrick Henry. Like, make that a thing too, right? Like, I just don't understand how you can be that predictable in game one when you had an entire offseason. You're playing the defending champs. There's been that's the one team that you haven't been able to figure out, right? That's the one team you haven't been able to kind of, every other team the Ravens have dominated. Every other team just absolutely turned their back porch red. And this is the predictability you're going to come out with in game one. This is what you've been labbing all offseason? To have 43 snaps from your number 2 running back and one carry? I'm sorry. That's poor coaching. That's bad news. Like, that's not that you can't have that. You absolutely cannot have that. It's frustrating. So the good news is, that's their toughest game all year, right? It was their first game, their toughest game, defending champs on the road, the atmosphere that is, a young offensive line that we expect to get better every single week. So that's the good news, right? Next week, we have a Raiders team coming in here that doesn't look like they're going to be, that good. They lose the first week. They score 10 points. They give up 22. They're not a team that I think it's the Ravens fans are going to feel a lot better after this week, but they're going to have to get over the Chiefs hump. Like, they're going to have to be. So if there's a situation where we play them again in the playoffs, which is likely, got to be better. Got to absolutely be better. Cannot see the same type of performance. But the good news is with the Raiders next week, I think, they have Gardner Minshew under center. The quarterback play is going to be a massive, massive drop off, and it will give an opportunity. It's like, it's like they say, and it's like Morgan. I think it was it Bruce Almighty? I think Morgan Freeman said, "Look, when you pray for strength, you don't get strength. You get an opportunity to show strength. When you pray for courage, you don't just get zapped courage. You get an opportunity to show courage and be courageous." Well, offensive line. Here's your opportunity to take on another monster pass rush. Like, if Ravens fans are hoping for a better offensive line performance, well, all you're going to get is an opportunity to show better offensive line performance, and they'll get that this week coming up with Max Crosby coming to town, with Christian Wilkins coming to town. They're going to get opportunities to be better, to get better. And so, yeah, I'm a little nervous about what Max Crosby might be doing to our right tackle, no matter who's in there. And I'm nervous to see if Falele's still out there, or even if Ben Cleveland and Voorhees are the two guards, what Christian Wilkins is going to be doing to those guys. But ultimately, the more opportunities you face, the more opportunities you have to get better and to be better. So let's just hope that we do see that improvement we talked about in the offseason, where this could be their worst performance as an offensive line. Let's just hope we see growth, right? Like, let's just hope, we continue to get better, like we thought we would when we talked about this youth on the offensive line. I thought we saw some good play out of Ronnie Stanley. Athleticism seems to be back. Tyler Linderbaum, after the neck injury, kept him out of pretty much the entire second half of that game. He looked to be pretty healthy, and he's back. So there's some things to be excited about, but also obviously some things they got to be better at. And I think it starts with the coaching staff. It's got to be better, Todd Monken. You got to be better. Just no two ways about it. Yeah, so we'll be back tomorrow night to continue to talk about reaction from week one, but most importantly, to start turning the page to week 2 against the Las Vegas Raiders. Appreciate everyone who's come out in the chat. Coach Evans, thank you so much at Sip to Tally. If you guys aren't subscribed over at Sip to Tally, you certainly should be. He will make us a better player. He will make you a better fan, I should say, just simply by increasing your sports knowledge. Baltimore football history. Appreciate you coming out and commenting and keeping the chat live. I appreciate that. Always like having differing opinions in there. Kind of challenges the thoughts in the chat. But Killer Cam, thank you. That's what I call my son, actually. That's his nickname. So appreciate you coming out. Kevin, Brandon, thank you guys. Gary, thank you for coming out. Truth, appreciate your visitation on a Monday at midday. Appreciate you guys all jumping in here with me. We'll be back tomorrow night. Have a good night. We'll talk soon. See you.